No, I just clicked a button I didn't mean to click.
Here's Sam.
Tech failure.
Oh
no! Hold the phone. It's contagious.
All right. That's all right. I got it. All right. So there we go. Jimbo, it's time for you to open up your camera, my friend. So Webfleet's James Dewhurst, Sales Director Corporate, has been working in the telematics industry for over 15 years and has taken a keen interest in helping fleets use data insights to be safer and greener and make the world a better place for his children. Quite right too. He's based up in the Highlands of Scotland, unfortunately for him, and his first electric car was delivered to his door in less than 24 hours by Tesla before his Amazon Prime delivery arrived. Fun fact, James couldn't be with us today, sadly, but his AI equivalent has just stepped in. If anybody saw the last time James was on, he demonstrated a terrifying video of him not being him with AI. But James, welcome to the show. I am blown away, by the way, by the 98% that was quoted in the Riverford video this morning, because I'm trying to work out how much money that would have saved me when I had a fleet of 100 plus drivers driving around central London. 98% would have saved me tens of thousands of pounds at least. So where were you? Where were you when I needed you?
Yeah, I know. I think when we look at that as well, I mean, it's also the safety that comes out of that and the well-being we talked about already. I think it's a great subject. Well-being is so important nowadays that actually the more people the faster you drive, the more accidents there are. The more people off work, those aspects too. It actually driving slower, driving safer just helps in that side as well. So welcome. Thank you very much for the welcome. Nice to see you all as always, and really important subject I think you discussed earlier on today as well. I've got a shout out to Kian and my team who's actually doing Movember as well. People know I've done it in the past, didn't do this year, but we'll probably come back to it next year, and I think it's a really, really worthy cause. So anybody that's got that link should definitely jump on. I'll be doing it a little bit later. So
thanks, mate. Right, actionable insights. What have you learned from your time doing what you do?
Well, I mean, so we're now 16, 17 years into this data side, and even before that, I was in sort of document solutions that looked at it too. I think the important thing, when you talk about insights, is that I don't know if anybody follows Simon Sinek in the things. Start with why. Right. So the important thing about the actionable insights isn't about you're going to move to the how you're going to do it, but you've got to start with why. And for me, like in that terms, right, we're looking at two things. We're looking at sustainability planning, and transition and decarbonisation, but we're also looking at financial savings, as Sarah alluded to earlier on. Your person that's going to give you the most steer with your CEO is going to be your CFO. And what we tend to find now is your ESG managers are reporting into the CFO. So, but it's got to be, you've got to start with why, look at those financial savings, look at that sustainability gains you're going to make as a business before you then move on to the how. And the how is where we as Webfleet from telematics start to move in, because we're bringing in the usage data of the vehicles. We're also bringing in usage data of chargers now into the platform as well. We're looking at battery health, we're looking at efficiencies. But before you even connect to electric vehicles, you can connect to all your ICE equivalents and pull the data that you want in there. Now, the problem is, as everyone says, so much data, how do you actually get to disseminate that, pull it around, make it actionable? So the point from the Riverford earlier on, the discussions you also mentioned as well, the driver is absolutely fundamental in this. We cannot ignore those drivers. Yes, we're doing a lot of reports on vehicles, on capabilities, on ranges, on other aspects, but realistically, the drivers need to be on board. The data we've analysed and we've looked at, average van movements on a day is about 80 miles. So everything that people talk about, I can't get a van that will suit my range and those things. Riverfords are doing it. Like we've got OVO doing it. They're all utilising it in the right way. 80 miles isn't a lot, and most vans will be capable, of doing that pretty much all nowadays. So we're removing that element of data anxiety, but the driver can extend that range by around about 20% if they are driving more efficiently, if they're driving smoother, if they're using regen, if they're avoiding speeding, those areas, they can be a big extender. So I think taking the data that comes out of telematics, like using it in the right way, feeding that back to the driver, sometimes in real time like we do through devices and technology that's in the cab so they can get advice as they're driving. Sometimes it's more a case of actually sitting down with them afterwards and saying, here's your data, here's what we can see from it. And then you start to really have action, and then you start moving into the how and what you could do with that business. So I've gone full 2 feet in there for the start, but yeah, as a starting point.
Oh, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. I was just thinking about putting my 2p in. I don't mean 2 pence worth. I mean the 2 P's that you used, proactive and partnership. And I think that's what Webfleet offer fleets, at least who are starting out. And if anyone's ever tuned into any of Webfleet's own content webinars, I mean that other webinars do exist, but if you have got spare time, suppose the webinars from Webfleet are all right, you'll see that they do touch upon end-to-end part of your business, so you can get data insights across the ecosystem. So if it's building that case study to show that actually your insights start with data, and having someone proactive like Webfleet to help you build that is what you need. So there you go, Sam. You needed Webfleet all those years ago.
If you've got any questions for James or Keith when he comes on, pop them in the Q&A tab at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and we'll pick them up, and Paul will be able to pose those in due course. Sarah, is that another finger?
It's just terrible, isn't it? I just enjoy these because I get to pick the brains of the guests that come on. But I do have a question, but you can go first if you've got one.
I was going to ask about the heavy goods stuff and how many HGVs are using telematics as a matter of course. Is that something where there's an awful lot of use of telemetry to track and understand? And actually the focus for your work is more on vans. And that's the sort of small business, smaller fleets who just get in a van. It's just a way of getting to a job so they can get on and do their thing. But actually there's a lot of learning that they could have if only they understood the benefits.
Yeah, I think when we look at it, I think the stats are there's around about 300,000 HGVs on the road and nearly 7 million vans. So there's a much bigger potential addressable market in that space. But I also do see, the HGV side of things in electrification is the next big challenge. That's where we're seeing momentum on the van side. But again, when you talk about actionable insights, I think when you talk where there's a lot more work to do with van drivers, because van drivers, I think, if you ever speak to somebody, listen to somebody like Mark Cartwright who works on national highways, and the way he talks about, he'll speak to somebody that arrives at his door, like Sam was doing, with the plasterer and that sort of things. And he'll say to them, what do they do? And they're driving a van. They'll say, oh, I'm a plasterer or I'm a plumber. And he says, well, you're a driver as well, don't you? That's what you're doing. You're doing so much driving in your job. Whereas a HGV driver will tell you they're a HGV driver, and they'll tell you how you drive. So they have to do their CPCs, they have to do their training pieces. I was, at a company in Aberdeen yesterday where we sat down and we discussed the difference between the quality of their drivers and, compared them. And they said, this is our professional driver. This is our most senior driver. He takes pride in everything he does and he wants to learn. He's already asking about the data we're providing from the systems. So again, what they wanted to do was have the league tables, have the data in the right place, at the right time, and give that kind of holistic view to the driver. But also he wanted to delve into the detail. He wanted to understand why his coasting score was low, in that aspect. And that's something that people have, when they get into an EV, there's an adjustment to make, but they can start the adjustment in a petrol or diesel van. Most people in vans are on a deadline, they're rushing around, they're braking late, rather than a HGV will look at maybe, a mile, sometimes half a mile to a mile before a roundabout. They will lift off the accelerator, and that is freewheeling, into that, gradually slowing down. That's more efficient. And that's what you do when you switch to electric. You have to work that way because you've got regen, and that's what the transition is. So Riverfords, we did a lot of education with them, even for the vehicles that aren't electric yet. They're educating their drivers about their right foot and what an impact that can have on their extending their petrol and diesel range and using less fuel. But then when they transition to electric, there's not as much training to do because they've had the insights out of the system. They've been given a coasting score. They say it's 50%. Actually, you should be doing 70%, and they're working with that over time. So it's just making them aware of that data and making sure it translates simply, because I think the research we've had shows that it's around about £3,000 saving per EV, when you do transition for a business. So if you can get them into that space, you can save on the fuel, you can save on the cost, you can save on the running costs of an EV as well. I don't need to preach the converted here, people that are tuning in, but that's the carrot that's available, from that chap that was saying his CEO wasn't on board with it. Have we run the numbers? Have we actually done the ROI to say how much these vehicles could actually save you? And looking at that piece and using the data to do that.
Yeah, just wanted to add to James' comment, particularly in the HGV sector. There's a couple of things that come to mind. One is we've seen through my project some of the behavioural patterns of some of the hauliers have been really quite interesting in terms of starting very, very low mileage on their trucks, and then all of a sudden there's a kick, and the vehicle is then almost doing almost 100% more range on the basis they go, okay, we know what we're doing now, and really, really pushing it, and the data is showing us that behavioural pattern. Whereby people are being very conservative to begin with, but then really pushing the boundaries thereafter. I think the other thing to consider as well is proportionality. So James quite rightly quoted some of the numbers there. There's only about 1,000 EHGVs on the road at the moment, but EHGVs in general, are quite low consumer of mileage in totality, but one of the largest emitters. So there's an element of proportionality we've got to understand as well with all of this. And how much emissions are being saved as a result of those vehicle types on the road. So, without data, we know nothing.
Talking of knowing nothing, here's Paul.
And I know nothing. I'm just really a voice for the questions that have come in for James specifically, and I think it would be good to just kind of do that. So Rob Vowles has asked, James, do you think that telematics data can also be used to assist fleets in figuring out a way to get their drivers who do not have off-street charging to charge their day using less intrusive to the workday methods versus rapid charging in the beginning of the day, charging using residential on-street charging, peer-to-peer charging like co-charging, charge share overnight, that sort of thing. Do you think there's a part to play that you guys can bring?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the points that I'd actually kind of noted down as well when we look at it, because I think when you're looking at optimizing charging, you're also in this scenario where you need to look at the dwell times of the vehicle, the standstills, and actually what we do with a lot of our customers through the data, once we've got it, is then start to say, right, how much time is that vehicle actually stationary during the day? How much time is it stationary at night? And that, we measure standstills through the systems, we report on it. We also look at idle time and those aspects as well, because that's, that's time things. But with when we transition to HGVs and those areas, we also look at tachograph, because when you're planning around driving hours, they have regulated breaks at certain times. So you may be sort of changing their behaviour to say, could you charge whilst you're on your 45-minute break, your 25-minute break, those top-ups that sort of thing. So there's definitely a lot of data that can be consolidated. Charging an optimized structure, I think, is also key, because if you're starting to plan where you're going to put your chargers, you want to know where those vehicles are stopping, not just when. So so we can also look at dwell time and dwell location, consolidate that information, and start to build a plan with somebody to say, actually, this is where you need to have the most number of chargers. And if you can really get clever with it, and we partner as well. Sarah, you hit the nail on the head earlier. You talked about partnerships. We can't do it all ourselves. We try to, but there's certain elements of that. So we do look at the partnerships with things like Dynamon, ChargerLight, Power, those companies. Who can take that extra step to utilise our data and produce something more meaningful, that's more bespoke. So I also think it's really important, if you're speaking to somebody that's in the industry that's got a data reliance but doesn't have the connection, speak to your telematics company, speak to us like people at Webfleet to say, can we connect the dots here? Because when we do that, now we're getting actionable. We're moving forward. We're not just sitting there with a myriad of data in all those different places. We get one single pane of glass that everyone can look at, and then you get the experts that can come in and do their stuff. And I think that's great.
We have got a couple more questions for you, James, but I'm just wondering if we perhaps go to Keith and then bring these questions in.
Absolutely. Do them both.
Well done, Paul. Thank you kindly. And James, superb, my friend. Well done.
Thanks,
Thank you
James.
kindly.
Thank you.
Now bog off.